Part 4 of turning my Toyota Prius into my home. Hi, I'm Holly and this is my dog Emma Bear. In 2023, we took an 8-week, almost 10,000-mile road trip around the United States. I folded down the seats and made it work in my Prius, but honestly, it was pretty crowded. Every morning and every evening, I needed to rearrange the entire car. This is the 4th video in my Prius build series and how we took my car from this to this over the course of 8 weekends in the spring of 2024. It was time to get started on our second full weekend of working on the Prius, so Emma and I headed over to the shop to meet up with Rocco, Cynthia, and Julep. So I am going to take an open-ended road trip in just about 6 weeks here. This is the 4th day of converting my Prius into a car camper, and it's going pretty well. We had been working on the back seat bench when we wrapped up the weekend before, so we got right back to it. Rocco was refining the front part of the bench, and we were thinking about how to put a back on it. Whatever we did, we needed to remove a couple more inches from the back edge of the seat, so we got set up to slice off another strip. We had the front and the top of the bench pretty much done, but we still needed some side pieces, so we got to work templating them. We took the paper templates that we had just made for the side pieces, traced them onto wood, and Cynthia got to work cutting them out. With all 4 bench pieces ready to go, it was finally time to put them all together. To do this, everything was first glued into place and then screwed together. We tidied up, Cynthia took a quick dance break, and then it was time to try screwing the bench into the blocks in the car. Coming along, looking nice. Look at this. Yes! We took a minute to document this milestone and then we kept on working. When I think of the car build now, I think of it as 2 separate sections, the front and the back. In between, there's this piece that I think of as the bridge, and that was the next piece that we were going to give some serious attention to. While Rocco cut the next piece of wood for that, I took the bench outside for a little more refining. After some discussion about how to round the edges in a uniform way, we decided that using a router was the best solution. I had never used a router before, so I got some quick tips and started. The sawdust was going everywhere, so I took it out into the alley to brush it off a little bit before I sanded it down just a little bit more. While I was outside routing and sanding the bench edges, Rocco and Cynthia were making plans for the bridge piece. I am the only one that Emma tolerates making loud tool sounds, and the compressed air staple gun was no exception. As you can imagine, this is pretty distracting when you're trying to work, so I had to scoop her up and take her out of the shop. Don't worry, she was fine. She just needed to get a little distance from the loud sounds. We are making good progress today with the car. Yes, you're not. You're not helping, but it's okay, because you're so cute. In the back of the Prius, there are 2 bolts with D-rings attached, which can normally be used to tie things down. We were planning to use these D-ring bolts to attach the bridge to the car. We weren't seeing a good way to do it with wood, so Rocco decided to make custom metal brackets to attach to the bridge. It was Saturday evening, the weather was gorgeous, we'd made some good progress, so we decided it was time for a cocktail break in the backyard with Cynthia's dad. And Rocco captured the moment of the Prius in the shop. We got back into the shop and Rocco got back to work on the metal brackets for the bridge. We attached the metal brackets to the wooden bridge, tried it out in the car, and then decided it would be even better if the brackets were inlaid so that they were flush with the wood. I took the brackets off and got to work making a little inlay slot for each of the brackets. And behind me, Rocco and Cynthia are in the car looking at how the bench and the bridge are going to fit together. Rocco then cut the 3rd and top piece for the bridge. We did a little more planning and decided it was about time to wrap it up for the night. We tidied up, did a little vacuuming, and I got Emma's bed in the car. Successful Saturday in the books. The next day, we got our brains organized and got back to work. In the back, there was going to be a large cover that flipped up. Rocco measured and got that big piece of wood cut while I tried out this inflatable cube to see if it might work as a chair. As I mentioned before, we were planning on putting a desk back there, and I needed something to sit on. He's about to use this original piece from the Prius as a template to get the basic shape for this piece of wood. Cynthia traced around it onto the piece of wood, and then they got started cutting it out. The plan was to connect this large back cover piece to the bridge piece with a large piano hinge. It needed to fit pretty tightly, and I also needed to be able to swing it up and prop it open so that I could get to the storage area underneath. Refining this piece of wood into something that would fit required taking it in and out of the car over and over and slowly shaving down the corners and the edges until it fit just right. Little cuts, little alterations, and just changing it a little bit at a time so that we didn't mess up this big piece of wood. While Cynthia and I continue to refine that big back piece, Rocco starts making the backrest for the bench. It seems like our big back piece is finally in good shape, so I get set up outside to run the router along the edges to round it and then also do a little sanding afterwards. While I'm already out here all set up, I might as well also do the back part of the bench that Rocco just made. And I knocked it down just a little more with a sandpaper block. The wooden bridge piece that bridges the front and the back of the car is actually made up of 3 pieces of wood. There are 2 spaced pieces that make up the bottom layer, the back one of which has the metal brackets inlaid, and now we're making a template for the top piece of wood that's going to tie together those 2 bottom pieces of wood. We get that done and Rocco cuts a piece of wood for us to trace the template onto. We tape the template onto the piece of wood, get it traced, and now it's time to cut it out. I'm learning how to cut curves with a bandsaw. Cynthia and I take a look at the bridge piece that I've been working on, and I make some marks so I can keep cutting it down. While I was working on this, Rocco was refining the back of the bench seat. At this point, we had purchased 2 long piano hinges. One was for the back storage area, and the other one was to connect the back of the bench to the seat of the bench. We couldn't see any structural advantage to attaching the back of the bench to the bridge, so instead the back of the bench was just going to slide up underneath the lip of the bridge to hold it in place. As you can see, there are a ton of screw holes in each piano hinge, so first I went through and made pilot holes and then screwed in each of the tiny screws for the piano hinge. A quick sawdust vacuum, and then we chatted a little bit more and decided it was time to wrap it up for the weekend. All right, days 4 and 5 of working on the Prius conversion are complete. Notable, noticeable, I need a better word, marked progress.